talk a bit, if you would, about the film and why you produced it?
Okay, the film you haven't heard about it because it's going to be saved for next year. So we went to Toronto maybe a little early, but you're going to hear about more next year. There's so many reasons why I wanted to produce this film. It has a personal reason, but not all the things that are personal to you can actually make an interesting movie. Like you can love a book or you can love a story, and it can be a great story, but that doesn't mean that it's worth going through the pain in the neck that it is to try to make a movie. you know, you gotta love it, and then you gotta believe in it, and you gotta have a vision that it's a more global vision of how many people can be moved by it in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be clear about it, because it's really hard to make them. Everybody knows this. It gets harder every time, I think. And so the first thing, the book. My grandfather, who I was very close to, his name was Elias. He always had this book next to his bed. And it was the face of this older man that reminded me of my grandfather. And I was so spoiled by this man. This was the first thing who truly ridiculously spoiled me. I was the favorite. He was so important to me. He's the first person that died in my life. Oh. When I was 6 or 7, around this time. But it really, really affected me, this death. And so later on in life, you know, in my late teens maybe, I see this book somewhere else. I don't even remember where. And I said, can I borrow this? Because of course now I can read. Mm. And of course in your late teens, to find a treasure like this, to me it was like my grandfather talking to me through this book. And teaching me about life and teaching me about who he was and where he came from, because he's Lebanese. And so the book was important to me. But then, you know, it's a philosophy book, so how do you make a philosophy book into a film? And so I had a vision for something really strange that would break all the rules, and that got me really excited. Every time there's rule breaking, I get a lot of energy. You need a lot of energy to put up with all the challenges that come your way. And I thought about making this story that was not necessarily exactly like in the book, but close to it. I mean, inspired by that, would have the same spirit and mm-hmm. sensation.
Well, I think many people may not know what the book is about, so give a little summary.
The book, it's a recopilation of poems that have a very thin storyline, there's no story. And they're very simple poems about things that we can all relate to. Children, death, love, you know, very simple things. Beauty, food, eating and drinking. And it was written by a Lebanese writer. And it's very...
In the 20s, right? In the 1920s?
No, the 40s.
In the 40s,
yes. And so it's very exciting for me because it's a Lebanese writer. But it's spiritual, but not religious. So it includes every religion. And it's a book that has sold more than 100 million copies around the world. It's one of the most sold books ever. There's never publicity about it. It's one of those things that is like the quiet secret that everybody passes. It was like The Secret or one of those books of the 40s and 50s, definitely the 80s. And, but you know, it's just a recopilation of poems. So I thought, I know what we can do. We can make a main story that it can be attractive to children. And then in animation, because poetry doesn't go with live action so well. To me, poetry goes well with music, goes well with art. Live action, it's a little. I mean, yes, of course, the Shakespeare, of course, but I wanted. I wouldn't know how to do that. But I did have a vision to do poetry through amazing visuals, and I thought it was so timely, to do a film about the simple things in life that bring us all together, and that make it's uplifting for the spirit. I need that. I want my children to feel that and to be inspired and to be moved, not by drama, but by life itself, by curiosity about life, or to be moved by feeling touched by life through art. But not necessarily because it's sad or dramatic or because you are laughing. And I don't remember when was the last time that I saw something like that truly moved you. So I wanted to create an experience where you would go with your children and you would watch this animated little story, and all of a sudden you'd be taken away out of the movie into yourself and show something a little bit more abstract that means something different to every single person. And I believe that poetry is very important for children. We should not underestimate, they are smarter than us because we try to make sense of every sentence of the poetry wrong. Sometimes for them, they don't try to do that. It's just the rhythm. It's just the rhythm that they understand because they are closer to their spirituality. Words, it's been proven, have a very strong value. It's in your subconscious. And so for them, this compilation of beautiful words, you think they might be bored. No. And because the visuals are so beautiful, the main story is done by Roger Allers, who did The Lion King. But all the poems, we have 8 poems inside of the story that have something to do with the story. They're directed by some of the most brilliant artists that you can imagine, and they will blow your mind.
Yes, beautiful.
And every single one of them takes you somewhere else completely. I keep hitting the mic. So
for emphasis, it's good.
I talk so much with my hands.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree, and I love the idea, particularly of having a Lebanese poet at a time where we associate the Middle East, and Arwa just reminded us, as if we needed a reminder, of just how violent it is, and that there's another voice in that culture, in that tradition.
Exactly.
And
it's
that's
important to be reminded.
And the thing that we were talking about then, and comes into every conversation that I have about the violence that we're seeing now, is that I feel that it has to start with the children, because the problems that we're dealing with in that region, they are entrenched and they are there for a generation. And so if we're going to shift that,
it has to start with the children, but we have to make war against hate. If we can win this war, we can win the war against violence. And the only way we can attack hate is by somehow, by getting distracted, finding something that can sneak into someone's soul and gives them access to new feelings about oneself as a human being. Because the information that we have consciously and subconsciously in our everyday lives tells us we are shit. I'm sorry. We are not doing well. It is very difficult. And in life, it's very hard. And everywhere you look around, there is some kind of terrible threat, and you are in survival mood, And we are not just We are supposed to be magical beings. We're not just supposed to be survivors. But we can't have time or space in our heads to go experience that about ourselves. And this is what we need to teach the children. It's very hard. Yes, it's about the children, but it's also about us. So I love it that he is Lebanese because it's part of where I come from. I think it will bring a different view maybe of this part of the world, a different side of this part of the world, because it's a philosophy. We are always like, oh no, their philosophy is this, is that, is... We have to be careful.
That exists too, yes.
Yeah, we don't have to do that too, to hate them or to not even understand who they are and really make a quick judgment, make it very, quick.
Dismiss it. Yeah.
Dismissive, it's complicated. We can't just, it's not that movie. This is a very complex problem for many years. That's why I want to make the movie. It's a long answer to a very simple question.
Which makes my job so easy. Yeah, it's a beautiful answer. Talk a little bit as well about some of the activism that you're involved in. You go around the globe, actually. You travel, you do things, you don't necessarily publicize it. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
For a long time I didn't. Because I was not that successful also in my career, so I had more time to go to Africa and go to India and do the things. And so I had the time to do a lot of things. And also because I was so passionate about it, to me, it was a part of me that had nothing to do with being a celebrity, so I didn't associate it. It was not really trendy also to put it together.
Well, why did you even want to start getting involved?
I always did.
I
always, since I was really young, I always had this habit of trying to fix what doesn't work. And
all I know is I read that she got thrown out of a Catholic school.
Yes, but
so it didn't seem like the do-gooder wasn't necessarily always in your nature.
You know what? They did give me.
She tortured the nuns, is what I read.
Before I left, they did give me a medal. Everybody would get medals. I was there 2 years, and everybody got medals all the time, and I wouldn't even listen to the names after a while because it was like, for discipline, I'm like, well, forget about that. For being neat, because it was a boarding school, I'm like, wow, that'll never be my name. For good grades, for do good, for praying a lot. And so it was a boring, so many girls got it. And towards the end, we have a special medal. I'm doing something else, drawing, playing with the girl next one, and then they said, we have a medal. I didn't even hear for what, and then they said Salma Hayek, and I'm like, am I in trouble? And they said, no, you want a medal? And I'm like, me? But for what? Why? What? Because I didn't hear, because I was not paying attention. And they said, for spirit. Yes, for spirit. And then they changed the nun that was the head of the nuns, and she said, you should go now before we kick you. You made too many trouble. But they were not bad. They were funny little things. I would put the alarm clock, because all the American girls would go to the boarding school only for girls.
Yeah.
They would do rollers in their head.
Right.
And put makeup, and they were 13, 14.
Yeah.
And they would make a lot of noise. I wanted to sleep till the last minute, to the point that there were some nights that I would sleep with my uniform on. So I would just brush my teeth and go. I had a system where I would sleep with the uniform on, with the bed made just a blanket over. And I would get into trouble because I was wrinkled, not a fashionista at the time. And so they would wake up so early to start putting makeup on. So one day I decided to, at study time, go in there and change all the alarm clocks an hour earlier. And they all were like at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, dark outside, taking a shower, rolling their lash. I laughed for about 2 hours. So I would do things like that. I did get detention. And then detention, I would do crazy things in the detention, which was also fun. Because if you're creative, you're creative. You have to be creative in everything you do. Otherwise, life is unbearable.
Yes.
So I was creative at detention also.
That's
But okay, so let's go back. Why did I start it with women? I always did it, but I started, my main cause has been women. Probably domestic violence. Although at the beginning I was all over the place. I've done field work in India, in Africa, in Europe, in America, in South America, in Central America. I work with children that live under the street, in the sewers in Mexico. I work with education. I work with AIDS. I work with prostitutes. I work with Mother Teresa as a volunteer. And then I decided, if you want to stop violence in the world, it should start in the home. You know, so domestic violence, I don't come from a background of domestic violence, but I think it's incredibly, incredibly important. And at the time was really abandoned. And I did a lot of work that it's not visible, because we're talking about maybe 25, 30 years of doing this work.
Wow.
Because I never organized myself into try to make like an institution that could show something for. Sometimes I was working with certain NGOs as a strategist. That was so much fun. Much better than having to get all dressed up and talk to somebody for awareness. To make the awareness part for me, it's boring. But it's important, I'm sorry. It's important, but it's not as exciting as like being there with the people or coming up with interesting plans and things like that. But for example, I started bringing it into my life, I don't know, many years ago, like 14 years ago. I don't know how long ago, Evelyn, but a long, long time ago, when all my girlfriends were getting huge deals for beauty, you know, cosmetics and stuff, Avon came to me. They were all super glamorous. I got Avon. I said, for the first time, we want to, and I was so excited. I was the first one. No, this is a company that for more than 100 years has been providing women the opportunity to be self-sufficient financially, which is such a... I also do a lot of microfinancing. I believe so strongly in it. It helps domestic violence. It helps so many things. So anyway, and I said, okay, I will do this if you work with me on domestic violence. And they said, no, we do cancer.
Oh, no.
They did. We do cancer. And that's our cause. And you can come and do cancer. I said, oh, cancer is great, but listen, I will give part of what you're offering me, you give part, but most importantly, just let me use your infrastructure. I will do the work. Let me use your infrastructure. But what are you talking about? I said, your catalogs, the hotline number, there's so much we can do with very little. It's not going to be a lot of work. I don't know, because it's an image thing, because we do cancer, and we want to be known for cancer. So after months of negotiation, we said, okay, it's either domestic violence or we're not going to do it. And then they said, okay, let's do domestic violence. So we started working with domestic violence. I worked with them for 10 years on this. I still work. I don't have a contract with them. We still do things together. Because of that, they raised more than $90 million for domestic violence. The thing is, sometimes you do more awareness by being aware yourself and living in the presence of this awareness than by talking until you die. when I was dating my husband, he invited me so much. I can't go. I have to go to Guatemala and Nicaragua. I was like, what are you going to go do? I have work to do there with the prostitutes, and we have this program where we're training them to teach the man to use the condom, and it's really working because it's dropping the AIDS, and they really are the. Okay, and then we be on the phone, and I said, so he goes, so what did you do today? And I would tell him, we did this, and then there was this woman, and then I would go, what did you do today? And he said, I'm embarrassed to tell you. And through this, he didn't know that domestic violence was such a big problem. People did not know. It's recent that, and one day he said, you know what, I'd like you to help me with something. Because I was all over the place, and I worked with all the different NGOs, and a lot of my friends would die. They kill a lot of activists in some countries. It's true. People that I would work with start the work, like with the women in Juarez in Mexico, a lot of people had to stop and move from another location. It was very messy and very hectic, because I did not even have an infrastructure. I was like just working with different people. And he said, I would like you to help me with something. And I said, what? And he said, my company is about celebrating women for the most. And I realized I don't do enough for women. So I'm gonna create this foundation, and I want you to be in the board.
That's this new thing that you...
No, this is already 6 years. We've already directly helped more than 140,000 women around the world. It's quiet.
Yeah.
He makes no publicity about it. It's hard work. He's also, the most exciting part is that he didn't just do it to go help other women, but change the whole philosophy of the company. In the company, there are more than 400 people trained in two of the countries, and it's expanding internally to help people with problems with violence within the company, to help them through it, to identify them, know where to go, all the different things. We also do not just domestic violence, but many other things like...
Not cancer.
No, I've done for cancer though. I've done for cancer a lot. I've done for cancer. And Avon has done incredibly for cancer. How great, they do cancer and domestic violence.
Imagine.
But
that means if you survive, you don't get beaten up. It's fantastic.
Yes. But anyway, he has a program in his company where you can go to do some of the field work in the places in different countries where we have a program with NGOs, and you can take some time off to go help. So anyway, I'm over talking.
No, you're not over talking.
What I
want
want
to see if we have
say,
time for a couple questions from the audience.
Okay.
Am I allowed? We'll take 2 questions. If anyone has questions about a life in activism, please stand up.
What do you mean live it instead of talking about it? I just wanted to jump in and ask, what do you mean by that?
That's a good question. The fact that my husband saw what I did and learned, got awareness, not through a pamphlet, but through seeing it in your life, inspired him to go do something. And then from there, that's the Caring Foundation, came Time for Change, which is a much bigger thing that Frida Janina, that's another thing that maybe there's no time to talk about it. But since like the Avon thing, it grew so much bigger than you can imagine. And it was not through trying to go convince people, but actually by what you do in your life. For example, for your children, you can tell your children all you want, but they learned a lot more by watching you do it. They are a lot more inspired. It's important to include it in your life. Just Time for Change is, I'll try to explain something, we put together we have many different partners, and instead of being somebody that says, give me money, I'm going to go do something. We've created an infrastructure where you can go and use your technology to find out, for all the people that want to do something that don't know how, and or they think they don't, I barely have enough money to survive, how am I going to help anyone? Trust me, there's somebody that can eat for a couple of days if you don't have one beer, and you can save the calories. But in this infrastructure, we divided education, justice, and health. And you can go, we will tell you all the good NGOs everywhere in the world, how you can help women. And you can pick what it is, and you can follow up what your money did. What are they doing? What is the next place? And so through this, instead of telling you, give me something, I'm going to do something, again, it's because this is something I created with Beyonce and Frida Giannini. It's us saying, here is something where you can go do something. Beautiful. And it's working beautifully. We've raised a lot of money through the, not we, you know.
What an amazing example you give us all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Salma.
Thank you so much.